Jurassic World Evolution 3 has all the tools you need to build your dream dinosaur park. Epic terrain brushes, automatic waterfalls, recolorable paths, and modular building. That last one has a bit of a learning curve. If you are about here, this video is for you. I'm going to explain how all the different functions of modular building work, from moving a single item to creating a blueprint for the workshop. At the end, you'll be ready to start your first build. All the items you can use for modular building are right here under the scenery tab. And when you open it up, you're gonna get hit with a wall of categories, which are just filled with decorations. And what I recommend that you do before you start building is just have a look through all of the categories to familiarize yourself with what's in here, and maybe take note of some good pieces that pop out to you right away that you're like, I know what to do with this. If you want to fine-tune your search a little bit, just go to all and then use the search function. So for example, let's look for chairs. There you have chairs. Or you can look for something Jurassic. You know, if you're looking for the Jurassic gate, using the Jurassic search term is gonna bring that up. And it shows you at the top which category you can find the item in. So this thing is in columns. So if you go to columns and we unselect this, it's right there at the bottom. So that's also just gonna help you find stuff and then learn where they are in the categories. Something else you can do is use the filter, which is very handy. So let's say you want to look up all glass pieces, you hit that, you confirm, and then all of the glass pieces available, they pop up. And you can also search for, let's say, biosyn themed stuff. Confirmed. Now you have everything within the biosyn theme. Your blueprints are in this tab right here. So you have your own blueprints at the top, and you have default blueprints below that. And this is also where your downloaded blueprints from the workshop will get added. We'll get to the workshop and how you can add your own blueprints later in the video. Before I show you how to actually build, there's a couple of things to be mindful of. So walls, floors, and roofs all work on a grid. So you can see if I select an item, a grid spawns around it. And the same goes for all of the walls, and the same goes for the floor pieces. And what you need to be mindful of is that these pieces can only be moved on the grid. This doesn't apply to other items. So for example, if I go to a rock, you can see a rock doesn't spawn a grid. And so if I place one, I can just move the next one freely. It's not locked into a grid position. Another thing important to be mindful of is you have the flattening foundations. And what these do is they flatten the ground underneath, and you cannot edit the terrain underneath. So I'm going to show you the difference between a flattening foundation and just regular asphalt. Let me pick the similar size here. So I have two pretty similar looking pieces, right? But if I go into the environment tool and I grab this, let me shrink that down a little bit. I can dig under this, right? I can just move the terrain. I cannot do that with this piece right here. It keeps the terrain flat. Now this obviously has its uses, so you can't accidentally dig under it, but I predominantly use these pieces so you can just, work with the terrain under it freely. The last thing before we get to the actual building is the dynamic foliage and dynamic rocks. So what that means, it's at the top here, biome dynamic foliage. So let's say you build a blueprint using these trees right here. And obviously I'm not building anything right now. But if I were to turn this into a blueprint and I load into, let's say, the desert map, these trees are all going to get replaced with desert appropriate trees. And the same goes for the rocks. We have biome dynamic rocks. So the rocks we have on this map, this is the temperate map. So we have temperate rocks. But if I build a random rock formation with the temperate rocks, I save that as a blueprint. And then I use that blueprint in a desert map. It's going to replace the rocks with this color. So instead of these gray rocks, you get the pinkish rocks. And that's really helpful if you want to build blueprints, if you want to have blueprints available to you, but you want them to fit whatever biome that your park happens to be on. Now, you don't have to do this. If you just use the regular rocks, so let's find the temperate ones. Here you go. If I were to use these rocks and I make it a blueprint, and I use that blueprint on the desert map, nothing changes. You get these exact rocks. So that's just something to be mindful of when you start building. And let's actually do that. Let's start building. I'm going to be using this item for the showcase. This is a goated item, by the way. I've been using this a lot. And what I want you to pay attention to are the options and the instructions at the bottom left and at the top right. Now, obviously, I play this game on PC, so my controls are different than if you play the game on console. Keep in mind that everything I'm going to be doing, you can do on console as well. The only difference is that the controls are different. So if you are playing the game on a console, just pay attention to what it says at the bottom left and the top right. And this whole video is transferable to console versions of the game as well. I've changed the color so you can see the different angles a little bit better. And to change the color, you do that right here. So this little thing pops up and you can just change it to one of the preset colors, or you can go into the wheel and select whatever color that you desire. So you can be really precise with that. And what you'll note is that you'll get a code here as well. So you can just, copy that and apply that to other items. And it also saves like your last couple of colors used. All right, so first, using the instructions at the bottom left, we're gonna turn the item, and on PC, you turn it with Z and X to move it, different directions. And what you'll see is that, it moves into certain angles, right? If you want to move it freely, you need to hold down C and this circle, it will appear. And if you just move the cursor, you can turn the item in the exact angle that you want. Again, controls on console are going to be slightly different. Well, very different. If you want to move it freely like this, but you still want it to turn into certain angles, you can turn on the angle snap. So right now it's at a 45-degree angle snap, and you can see that it will only snap into these positions. And of course you can set that however you want. If you want to move the item up or down, you hold down Shift, and then you can sink it into the ground, or you can raise it up into the air. And actually, let's do that. So it's raised up into the air right now. What if I want it to go like right back down to the terrain? Well, that's the instructions at the top right. So if I hit Alt, it'll snap back down to the terrain. So you don't have to eyeball that. So let's say if I do it manually, if I hold Shift, I have to like get down there and like try to get it exactly right. Don't do that. Just click Alt to align it back with the surface. Now let's say we want to stack a couple of these on top of each other. You can place one, and then if you move it on top of the other one, you can see that they do stack, but you have to be really precise with how you want to place it, because you can place it freely. Well, if you turn on position snap, it like perfectly snaps on top of it. So you can really easily create a huge stack. You can also stack them differently. So right now it sort of just climbs on top of it. If you turn on align to surface, it snaps onto the sides of it. There, and you can use that. For example, hold on. This is maybe not the best item to show it with. Let's go to signs. If you grab a sign here, now it's just flat on the floor, and now it's on your pillar, on your wall. And you can really easily, for example, if you want to write stuff on the wall, you can just grab an item, make sure that align to surface is on, and it'll snap onto whatever you want to create a custom sign with. Now with the cursor, you can move the item freely. You can also hold down Control, and then it'll only move along these two axes from like the point where you started. So this is about where I initially placed it. And you can go this way, or you can go that way, but you can't move it freely. If I release Control, I can move it freely again. Now we're going to go over to the controls at the top right. And this is where, you know, the modular building really comes in. So we have the F for cycle gizmo, which just opens this little version of the gizmo. I don't use this one very often. So I'm going to use the right mouse button to exit that. And we already did shift, so I was a little bit ahead of the curve. We also did alt already. Let's go to R, which is advanced move. And this is where I use the F key more, because the F key now cycles through the different ways you can manipulate a single item. So we have 4 ways to manipulate this item, and we're gonna start with the first one, which is the free move. But now we have all of these options. So right now in free move, we can move it freely. However, if you sort of want to create the functionality of a grid, you can turn on move snap, and you can see that it now snaps into certain positions, and you get like these lines that, you know, create the suggestion of a grid that you can follow. And it also goes for up and down. Now this is the smallest version of it, and you know, we can still move it at small increments, but if you turn this to the extreme, you can move it in like bigger increments. And this is really helpful if you want to combine a free move piece like this, which again, normally you'd be able to move like this. If you want to combine this with an item that works on the grid, you know, the grid items only move on this grid. So let me actually get a grid item. So here we have a wall, and you can see that it works on the grid. We can only move it that way. We'll come back to the grid items in a little bit. They're a little finicky to work with. But first, I want to take you through all of these options. Now, we already did align to surface and position snap, but we also have position snap rotation. So if I turn on position snap, as I showed, it like, you know, easily stacks it. But if I stack it on top of the other one and I want to free move it, I can still do that, you know, for what it's worth. If I don't want to be able to do that, I turn on position snap rotation. And what this now means is I cannot turn this item out of rotation with the one it is stacked on top of. So it will stay perfectly aligned. I can't mess this up, so to speak. For the next one, I need to find a building real quick. Hold on. I have a building somewhere. There we go. We have my entrance building. So at a building, if I do this, you know, if I move the item against an existing building, you can see add to arrival point. What this does is if I do this, it adds it to the group of that building. So it is now part of the building. We'll get back to groups later. You know, I don't want to get ahead of things. But yeah, if you just want to really easily add something to a group, that's how you do that. If you don't want to add it to the building, you know, if you want to build close to something else, but you don't want to add it to the group of a building, you just turn it off. And this way you can place it and it doesn't affect the group of the building that you're placing it next to. All right, random rotation is self-explanatory. If at some point you experience difficulty, make sure that random rotation is turned off, because it can really mess with building stuff. Like what you do here, it remembers in other modes. So if you're ever thinking to yourself, hey, why is random rotation on? How do I change it? It's right here. Turn it off if you're not purposefully using it. Collision is how dinosaurs and guests interact with an item. If collision is on, that means the item cannot be passed through. Dinosaurs can't go through, guests can't go through. So it creates a barrier. So yes, you can use every single item as a fence for your dinosaurs. However, if you turn it off, that just ensures that it's not going to mess with, you know, your dinosaurs moving freely through a habitat. The other option is terrain smoothing. And terrain smoothing, if it's on, it doesn't do anything. If it's off, it also doesn't do anything. Maybe limited to this guy right here. So let's do that. All right, terrain smoothing is off. I don't know, it still does the same thing. All right, so this one is a bit of a mystery to me. Hold on, maybe a different floor piece. Hold on, what about a different floor piece? All right, terrain smoothing is off. Doesn't change the terrain. Okay, terrain smoothing on. Doesn't change the terrain. Okay, so yeah, officially have no idea what that does. All right, so I've taken you through all of the options in move. Now, using F, we're gonna cycle to advanced move. By the way, if you don't want to use like the hotkeys, you can also just click on the buttons and use it like that. So now we're in advanced move and the widget pops up, or the gizmo, if you will. And you can move it, you know, in certain directions using the arrow keys. If we turn on move snap, it generates the grid again, and we can only move it into the certain positions. Same with the vertical movement. Let's turn that off. Speed control is how fast your item responds to the movement of your cursor. So right now it's at the slowest. So if I'm really pulling it and it only moves very slowly. This is really good for like, you know, very precise movements. If you want to just yank something across the map really quickly, you do that, and now it just reacts really speedily to the controls. I think it's set to about that by default. And again, we have collision and the terrain smoothing, which I don't know what that does. Oh, and you can move it using like a singular arrow. Like if you select just one of the arrows, you can move it, you know, in one direction. You can also change it in two directions at once. So you just want to hit it at the middle here, and you can see that both red and blue are highlighted now. If I click it, I can move it freely along the surface in both of these directions, right? And it works the same way if I angle it a little bit, and now I've highlighted green and red. I can move it up and, you know, to my right. I can't move it forward though. I can't move it towards me. It's just gonna sink down. And the same if I do this. I can move it sideways. I can move it up and down. I can't drag it towards me. If I drag the cursor towards me, it's just gonna sink the item. This one, axis toggle, is something that is better showed off with the next function, which is advanced rotate. So we have, you know, the angle snap. The speed control we've already been over. So the angle snap right now, I can move it completely freely on all the different axes, as you see. If I turn on angle snap, I can only turn it at whatever increment I set it to. So right now it's 45 degrees. This is really handy if you want to create like that perfect angle, right? So 45 degrees, I place the item, it duplicates automatically. So there, now I have that perfect 45 degree angle, and this is what I mostly use it for. So let me reselect the item. So let's say I want to use this piece, but like as a bar flat on the ground. I just go into R, I go into this one, I make sure angle snap is on, and I can just lay it flat on the ground like that really easily, really simply. And again, as soon as you place it, you have the next item available. So you can, you know, you can do whatever you want with that. Now, let me get back into this one. Let's actually do duplicate. So what I've done is I've clicked on the item. So I've selected it again. You can again change the color, by the way, if you want to do that. Let's not though. You can delete it. You can change the collision. And very importantly, you can duplicate it, which also works with Control F. Again, controls on console are going to be different, but you can also just click on the button. All right. And now you can see like the point of the axis toggle, which is you move it in the alignment with the item. So this is local, which means it is the axis of the item, so to speak. If I turn it to global, you can see what happens with the widget. Now I'm moving it on the global axis. So just straight up and down and in this orientation, right? So that's really handy. So if I want to create like, you know, a nice long line of these, I want to do it with the local setting. And this one you'll use most of the time, but sometimes you want to switch to global. And the same goes with this one. You know, if you want to be able to, here, right? If I want to turn it sideways like this right now, that's how that works. But let's turn it to global. And now all of a sudden, the red one turns it at a really different angle. Again, typically, you're gonna want to leave this at local. Again, speed controls is just how fast or how slow something responds, and it's showcased better like this. So right now I'm just moving it as fast as possible. It moves quite slowly. And now if I move it as fast as possible, you can really go crazy with it. All right, so the last function is advanced scale. And it speaks for itself, I think, but you can change the size of the item. So you can shrink it down to a certain extent, and you can size it up, again, to a certain extent. There is a limit here. You can turn scale snap on, so it just sort of moves in increments, as you can see. And then you can determine how big those increments are. So right now, this is minimum, maximum. If I want to turn it to like a lower or higher amount of increments, I can do that. So snap size control. Again, keep in mind that there is a limit to, you know, how much you can expand or shrink an item. And there is, you know, no way to stretch it just one specific way. You rescale the item as a whole. Let's say we duplicate this. And how about we position snap? And we create a big old pillar. If I want to select like this whole thing, I have to individually click on something. I'm holding down shift right now, and I click on the next one, still holding shift, click on the next one. This is how I can select all three of them. And you can see right here, I can confirm the selection. And now I can move these three at once. So again, if you're a PC player, this is very like intuitive. Shift means you can select multiple items. It's also indicated with the plus here. That's probably how you'll use it with console. If you switch it to minus and you click, you deselect the items. And this also works. Hold on, let me select them. Again, I used shift just there. If I hold control, it switches to minus. You can see I'm not holding anything right now, so it's automatically plus. If I hold control, it switches to minus, and I can deselect the items. Now, something I can't do right now is I'm clicking and I'm dragging, but there's no like box selection. And that's because these items aren't in a group. If the items are in a group, you can really easily draw a box and everything within that box gets selected. So making groups is really handy. So I'm going to show you how to make a group, which is really how you should be building stuff. So I'm going to build a really, I want to stress this. I want to build a really simple rock arch. All right, please forgive my rock arch. There, so I've built a super simple rock arch, and let's say I want to duplicate this rock arch because it's just so beautiful. Well, I could go through the trouble of selecting every single rock in this rock arch, confirm, and then I can duplicate it like that. I'd have to do that every single time though. I'd have to go in, select all of the items, confirm, duplicate, and add it to other parts in my park. Left click undoes that. That's a bit of a hassle. So we're gonna make it into a group. So what you do is you select all of the rocks again, confirm your selection, and then right here you can create a group. So now this is group 10. And if I just exit that, and there, this is group 10, and I can move group 10 as one. I don't have to select every single item again, because that's just a huge waste of time, right? I can rename the group if I want, so I can rename it to Rock Arch Ugly. Look, I'm just calling it as I see it, but you know, for the purpose of this demonstration, I can change the collision of the entire group, so that's really handy. I'm going to show you how to turn this into a blueprint to share with other people in a little bit. First, I want to show you other things about the group. So let's go into edit the group. So right now, the group is in, like the group as a whole is selected, and I can edit the group, and it's indicated with this nice yellow indication, which really pops out to let you know that you're working inside of a group right now. So everything I add, there, I'm going to give him like a little tower. I've now added that to the group. So if I exit it just by, using the right mouse button, that thing is now part of the group. There you go. Lovely. And again, this is how you can make like all sorts of changes with the group. Let's say you want a half arch. We're getting really random with it right now, but for the purpose of demonstration, let's select only half of the arch. Now, I can do that like this, the manual way, or as I said, I can drag it, and everything inside the box is now selected. And that's just, clicking, dragging, everything gets selected, right? So let me just get the right, there you go. All right, so confirm my selection. I've now selected half of the rock arch, and I can move this if I want. I can move that out of the way like that, and maybe like extend the rock arch. Or what I can also do is split this part from the group. So if I split it from the group, this is now my half rock arch. There, and I've now separated my group into two. I just have what's left of my ugly rock arch, and I have my half rock arch. All right, so I have this rock arch. Let's say I want to make it thicker, make it deeper. So we go into edit group. I'm selecting the whole thing, confirming. I'm going to duplicate it. I'm just going to move it back like that. And then you can see I can really easily make it longer that way. This is really important. If you're going to build stuff, like anything more complex than a handful of pieces, turn it into a group. Now, to make a group with like regular items, and you can make a group with whatever you want, right? So let's hold on. Let's use this here, chairs. There, I have 4 chairs. Lovely. If I want to turn it into a group, I'm just going to select all of them, confirm, create a group. There you go. Okay, so that's my group with these items. Now, that's how it works for most of the items. You just manually create a group. For the walls, the floors, and the roofs, i.e. our grid pieces, a group is automatically started. So let's grab the brick wall. You can see it's a grid piece. It moves on the grid. If I place it, bam, right away you have the editing group because it automatically started a group. So if I exit this, exit it again, you can see this is the group. All right, so about the grid pieces. The grid pieces are a little limited in how you can move them. You can only move them according to the grid. So, I can't turn this wall at like a 45-degree angle. I can only turn it, again, on the grid. And, it has advantages as well because, it's really easy to line up a wall. It's really easy to stack the wall. By the way, auto stacking is on right now. If I turn it off, it doesn't do that. But if I use shift, I can raise it like that. And again, you can see that it moves in like these huge increments. I can make the grid a little bit smaller, and that's how we do it here. So right now it's at the maximum size. If I make it smaller, I can move the wall pieces in more precise increments. I still cannot move it freely though. Keep that in mind. And right now, if I go up, it's still set at like the maximum grid size. I can change that as well. And now I can move it up and down more incrementally. Again though, I cannot free move it. The same goes for when I place it and I enter it and I go to advanced move. You can see that all of these options are not available because it's a grid piece. There's limitations to how you can work with this. And of course, you know, you can combine your grid pieces with whatever you want, right? So you've built a wall, congratulations. You can add windows and doors to that. So let's say I want to add a door to my wall. Well, right now it's being a little weird. It's being a little difficult. That's just a case of turning on align to surface, and then we can snap it to the wall like that. And the same with, for example, signs. There you go. Beautiful. I make amazing things, clearly. Now, I won't say I've been building amazing things, but I have built some stuff at this point that I'm pretty happy with. But, you know, in terms of the learning curve, I'm still about here, I'd say. And one of the more difficult things is using modular building to actually build buildings. I'd say that's the biggest challenge. But let's get into that. Let's get into building actual buildings. And there's two ways you can go about that. First of all, hold on, let me grab a new building. Let me grab I'll grab a hotel. So obviously, if you want to build a building, you can just use one of the prefabs. So that's this hotel right here. And this is just a lovely hotel built by the talented builders at Frontier, right? You can change this if you want. So let's say you don't like this wooden structure on top of this for whatever reason, right? You can edit this building. So you're going to go into the edits and then edit group. And now you can see like the different pieces get highlighted. You can edit this to every extent, right? So you do have to kind of painstakingly select all of these items, but just to give you a sense, we can delete this. By the way, to quickly delete something, you don't have to confirm and delete. You can also just hit delete. But there, you can see, I'm not going to select all of this, but you can see that you can edit an existing building however you want, right? You can tweak it to suit whatever you need. Same with the coloration. You know, if you go into edit group and you want to change the color of this wall for whatever reason, confirm and make it red. And you can do that all over. It's just a bit of a painstaking process, but it is really easy. So that's one way. You can just use the prefabs and tweak those as needed. Now, if you're like way further on the learning curve, you can start building your custom buildings. And this is how you do that. So let's say we want to build a custom hotel. So we have this one. And again, we have all of these lovely pre-builds available to us by the talented people at Frontier. Super cool. We can go into the workshop. Again, we'll get there. But what if you want to build a custom hotel? You click on custom design, and then the hotel is reduced to just a functionality box. Let's call it that. So this box has all of the functions of a hotel. So technically,
ladies and gentlemen,
here she goes.
For your comfort, we've increased the hotel capacity of the park.
This is a functional hotel. Your guests don't need any more. Your guests, they don't actually need all of this fancy stuff. Your guests are happy with the gray box. This is the function. This goes towards your park rating, all of that. If you want to fancy it up and like completely customize it to suit your park, you go into edit and you edit the group, and now you can start building on top of the hotel box. So let's go to walls, and you know, you're gonna start building the wall of your hotel. And you know, encase it like that. You see where I'm going with this, right? This is difficult because so much goes into building a building. It really is challenging. So something that I personally did is this platform right here. It is functional as an attraction because hidden in here, let me deselect it. Hidden in here is a lagoon viewing gallery. So hold on, let me actually grab it so you can see. Guess, no, it's an attraction here. This guy right here. Again, we have the pre-built versions, and we have the very basic version. Now, it still looks like a viewing gallery, but this thing right here, this structure, is hidden inside here. So this viewing platform actually functions towards like guest appeal and all that stuff. So, you know, the game gives you a box, but don't forget that you can think outside of the box and turn it into something else. For example, what I have over here, this is my shark tunnel. You can see, if I can get under here. There you go. There's my underwater shark tunnel. Get out of there. Again, there is a viewing gallery. There you can see it. Viewing gallery hidden within this, I don't know, Sydney Opera House, but from Temu or something. I don't know. I really struggle with buildings. Buildings are difficult, okay? But yeah, think outside of the box and sort of turn something into something else. So right now, I have my shark tunnel. It goes from one side to the other side. And even though the tunnel itself isn't functional, thanks to the lagoon viewing gallery in here, it actually does function towards guest attraction and guest appeal and all that stuff. Here, so for example, the small shopping amenity, custom design, has a really small box. And just to showcase it, the bathroom, an even smaller box than that. And again, you can just build around that, whatever you want. Now, if you've built something that you're happy with and you want to use it in other parks, you're gonna turn it into a blueprint. So I'm gonna select this thing, I'm gonna go into edit group. So, you know, let's say I just built this thing and, you know, I'm happy with how it turned out. And I wanna be able to use this in other parks as well. Because, you know, hold on, something that I shouldn't gloss over. If something is a group, I can place it, you know, wherever I want in this park. So there, I just placed it on this lagoon as well. That's the functionality of a group, but a group remains within this one save file. If I want to use it across different park save files, I have to make it a blueprint. And that's this functionality right here. So if I make a blueprint, create a new blueprint, I can give it a title, I can give it a description, and I can change like the camera angle to turn it into a picture, right? For the blueprint and for yourself, just so you know what it is. And you can also add tags to it to make it a little bit more easy for you and for others to find. So that's how you create your blueprint. All right, so I have my blueprint set up. It has a title, it has a description, it has tags. I can just create it as a blueprint for myself, or I can share it with the workshop. So let's do that. I'm gonna update and upload. Confirm. And now we're gonna upload it as a new blueprint. So here's the stuff that I added, and I'm gonna add this to the workshop. Do keep in mind that before you can do this, you have to create an account, but that's really easy. It's just a case of entering your email address, giving a password, and that's really it. So we're gonna upload this creation to the workshop. There, it's uploading. All right, and it should be done right now. So since we're here in the workshop, this is me, by the way, hello. But let's go to browse. And then there it is. There is the lagoon viewing platform that I just uploaded. And of course you have all of the other builds by other creators as well. Now, because I'm playing this before, you know, the game has launched, there aren't a lot of blueprints yet because, you know, it's only the stuff that was built by the lovely people at Frontier. You can see official Jurassic World Evolution team, I guess. Let's click on it. Yeah, the official Jurassic World Evolution team. So they added some stuff to the workshop, and some other people have been adding stuff as well. But, you know, once the game launches, there will be a whole lot more here. Now, what I'm interested to see is whether if I look for Lagoon, Yeah, so that actually does work. So that's really nice. So there you go. My lagoon platform is now available, and I will be, adding more stuff to the workshop for you to check out. That should all be available on launch day. So do check out my creations in the workshop if you want to use those. All right, but now let's say you want to download stuff from the workshop. Let's say you have no interest in modular building. You don't want to learn modular building. Well, I probably shouldn't have put this at the very end of the video, should I? But if you've made it this far and you think to yourself, okay, modular building, it's out of my league, or, until you move along that learning curve, you want to rely on other people's builds, let's download something from the workshop. So you can have a quick download right here, but let's first look at the item. So we have a lovely viewing gallery built right here by someone on the official Jurassic World Evolution team. And we're going to download that. So we're just going to install the blueprint. There, it's installed. Super easy. And we're going to exit the workshop. And now it should be available. So because it is a lagoon viewing platform blueprint, that's where you're going to find it. So you're going to go to attractions, lagoon viewing platform. And here is the one that I downloaded, and it should also be in here. There you go. So now I can use this platform within my builds. If you've downloaded something that is a decoration, you're going to find it in decorations. If you've downloaded something that is a hotel, you're going to find it at the hotels, right? I think that speaks for itself, but just in case you're ever looking for something, look for it in the appropriate category. You can also see that, when you go to build a hotel, you get the prefabs, but right away you get some top workshop items as well. So let's click on that. There, and it just right away downloaded it. I didn't have to go into the workshop. It's just in my build right now, and it's a combination of Din and Japanese stuff. And with a lovely animation, it gets added to your park. You can easily enter the workshop when you go to place a building to browse other options. You can also enter the workshop from the decorations menu, and there's a button in the same menu with the sandbox settings to access the workshop directly. Via the workshop, you can also upload and download full parks. The full parks available for download you find under the appropriate tab in the workshop, and after downloading, you can load into them the same way you load into a regular save file. To upload a park of your own for others to explore, go to Upload to Workshop from your profile. This will show not just your blueprints, but your full parks as well. And then you select one and upload it to the workshop the same way you do with a blueprint. Now I'm going to show you how to build a perfect circle using any item. And by the way, if this tutorial has been helpful to you, do give it a like so YouTube will share it with more park builders. So to build a perfect circle, I'm just using the same piece we've been using. Keep in mind that we're in a group right now. That's very important. So I'm going to place the item and I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to move it all the way across over there. And the distance will determine how big your circle is going to be. Speaks for itself, right? So we have these two items. I'm going to use the box select to grab them both. I'm going to confirm that, duplicate it. We're going to go into the turn function. I'm going to use the green circle to turn it around. And as you can see, the gizmo is right in the middle of these two items, which allows us to do this. Let me actually turn the speed down so I can be more precise. Let's do a little check. That seems pretty good. So, and there you can see that they're moving in a circle around this center point. Now, I don't want to do them piece by piece, so I'm going to deselect, do the box select again. And now I have multiple pieces selected, duplicate that. And this is just going to make quicker work of it. All right. And to make it real quick, let's do that. Duplicate. and turn it all the way around itself. And just like that, I have a circular wall. Now, I didn't do it very precisely. You're gonna want to be more precise than this. If you want to build something more complex, you want to build it in segments. So if I want to turn this into a circular structure, let me turn it into a group first. Confirm. Create a group. There, I can just easily select it. I'm going to duplicate it across. Select both items. It always has to start as a mirror image of one another, right? And the more details you want to add, just add it to the first one and copy it over to this one. But yeah, it needs to be mirror images of one another. Confirm. Duplicate, and you're gonna start turning it around on itself. And you just wanna, grab bigger sections as you go to make it easier on yourself. But yeah, you wanna approach creating a circle with a certain amount of forethought. The more things you add to your circular section, the more detailed the whole thing around is gonna be, right? So that's what I did. That's what I did with this thing. It started off with a wall piece, with a bit of banister, with a light, with this guardrail thing, with some flooring, with this line in the floor. And I copied that over to the other side and started turning it around. So you can add more detail that way. And that is the basics of modular building in Jurassic World Evolution 3. For more tips and tutorials and to see what I will be building in Jurassic World Evolution 3, subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, liking, subscribing, and until next time, enjoy the game.